Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, everyone. I'm Rabbi Jenny Greenspan from Congregation Beth-El and here to do our weekly Shabbat morning Torah Talk. Hope we'll join and enjoy this morning as we read from the Torah portion Toldot. This one, I know already last week we moved from Abraham and Sarah to Isaac and Rebekah, and in this week we are already going to move from Isaac and Rebekah pretty quickly into their children, to Jacob and Esau. But we will see a little bit from them, and actually do want to focus a little bit on the two of them, a little bit less than their children, though their children's part of the narrative we see much more later on in the Torah portion. As usual, if you would like to follow along with me in the Etz Chaim Chumash, you can find it on the Beth-El website under the Shabbat resources, or you can grab a physical Etz Chaim Chumash or any other Chumash and turn to Parashat Toldot, which is Genesis. It begins with Genesis chapter 25, verse 19, if you want to navigate to there. But first, we'll always do our Shabbat greetings. We'll say good morning, Shabbat Shalom to the Seagulls, Shabbat Shalom to the Sclairs, to Ellen Hamburger, to Phyllis Luger, to James Roth. It's so good to see each of you each week as we go through our Torah portion. So Shabbat Shalom. So welcome. So this week's Torah portion, we see the birth of Jacob and Esau, who will be Jacob will be our third patriarch, and his twin brother Esau. And so we'll get to see a bit of their story later on in the Torah portion. This Torah portion includes the famous story of Jacob stealing Esau's birthright, stealing at the direction of his mother. It's very complicated, lots of really difficult family dynamics going on here, where Jacob is cooking, Esau is hungry, and Esau allows Jacob to take the entire birthright, the entire inheritance, due to the firstborn, which is complicated with twins, but Esau is the firstborn, and he allows Jacob to take the right of that in exchange for some lentil stew. I don't know how many of you sometimes see lentil stew as a Toldot dinner option or a Shabbat meal option, but it's what I am probably having for lunch today, in honor of our Torah portion, though I don't think any birthright exchanges will be happening with mine. But it's an interesting portion, really difficult dynamic of family, of brothers. It includes deceit, not only of the brothers to one another, but the deceit from Rebekah to her husband Isaac, and deceit of her son Esau, and Isaac also doesn't seem to give Jacob as much fatherly love as he is due compared to Esau. The two parents clearly have favorite children, and we see a lot of how that falls out, and a lot of the difficulty of the kind of back and forth of some difficult family dynamics. But I actually want to focus this morning on the actual conception of Jacob and of Esau, of how the two of them come to be, in a verse that is one of my favorite verses, not because it's profound or inspirational, but because I find myself coming back to it and looking at it every year. I think Jim Roth, when we've studied in person, he said every year they you kind of revisit something, and it looks like they snuck something new in. This verse that I want to look at most deeply this morning actually seems to do that for me every year. I see something new in this one verse because it is just so rich, that we will get to in just a moment. But we're going to actually start with the very beginning of the Torah portion, not go that far into it to get to that verse. This is the story. So if you are in an Etz Chaim Chumash, I apologize, we're on page 146, whether in the PDF or in a physical copy. If you're using a different Chumash or Safari or anything like that, I'm in Genesis chapter 25, starting at verse 19, which is the very beginning of the Torah portion, Toldot. This is the story of Isaac, son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac. There it is. We have Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he took to wife Rebekah, daughter of Beth-EL the Aramean of Padan Aram, sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac pleaded with God on behalf of his wife because she was barren, and God responded to his plea, and his wife Rebekah conceived. But the children struggled in her womb, and she said, "If this is so, why do I exist?" And she went to inquire of God. And God answered her, "Two nations are in your womb, two separate people shall issue from your body. One people shall be mightier than the other, and the older shall serve the younger." We have a prophecy from God directly to Rebekah. This is one of the things to note here. It's unusual to see God directly speaking to a woman in our Torah. And here Rebekah dares to go ask God and gets an answer. I want to focus on the beginning part of that verse. Vayitrotzu habanim b'kirbah, v'tomer im kain lama ze anochi. The children struggled in her womb, and she said, "If so, why do I exist?" Im kain lama ze anochi. I think a lot of times in life we have moments of desperation where we say, "If so, why do I exist? If this is what I'm dealing with, why am I here?" And it comes directly after Vayitrotzetzu habanim b'kirbah. The children are struggling inside of her, inside her womb. And that is what seems to trigger the "if so, why do I exist?" In Kain lama ze anochi. And I find it fascinating because on the one hand, this is her first pregnancy. It's pretty clear from the previous verse that she and Isaac had struggled to get pregnant. It's clear that this is her first pregnancy. But she obviously would have spoken to other women and have other women around her to have shared what pregnancy can feel like, and that it may or may not always be comfortable. And she may have felt that, heard from other women that it can feel uncomfortable to have the child moving inside of her. And these two, she's got twins, are struggling. She may not realize that she has twins, but she would be able to tell from other women what their experiences are like. And yet she says, "So why do I exist? If this is what's happening for me, why do I exist?" Because perhaps the experience of twins is unusual, so maybe she hadn't heard about twins actually struggling with one another in utero. Or she's just not sure what's going on. Why is she in so much pain? Maybe she doesn't realize whether her pain is a usual or unusual level. She's saying, "Why did I want this so badly?" She wanted badly to have children, and yet here she is experiencing the pregnancy, saying, "Why do I exist?" Rashi says the question behind her why is this pregnancy is painful, so why do I have to do this? And so Rabbi Nachmanides says she went to inquire of God, to inquire of the Eternal. So she asks. There's something here, I think, where she's experiencing uncertainty. She doesn't know what's happening. She doesn't know why her pregnancy feels the way it does. And she is experiencing pain, and she doesn't know what's about to happen next. She is in what many of us would find to be one of the most vulnerable states. She doesn't know what's going on. And I think that this verse is reminding us that often we have moments of uncertainty. Often there are moments where two things are struggling within us. Maybe it's not two physical children struggling inside of a pregnant woman, but we often experience two things struggling within us, in direction of where we should go, what we should do next, opinions on what we need or what the world should do, thinking it through, big decisions. We often have these moments of uncertainty and not knowing what's to come next and how to decide between two things and how to deal with two things seemingly at war within us. I think this entire pregnancy comes from moments of uncertainty. They didn't know that they would have children. In Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, early midrash, suggests that Isaac had been told to take Rebekah to the place where he had nearly been sacrificed two Torah portions ago, and that was where these two were conceived. The entire conception of what we have to move forward is seated in uncertainty. The moment of Isaac's future was uncertain, and that was where they were able to come back and have these two children. So she's sitting here in this moment of uncertainty, not sure why she is feeling this pain, this struggle, and wants to know, why do I exist? What's supposed to come next? And she does one of the things that we can do to manage uncertainty. She goes and asks somebody who knows. She goes to God and says, what's going on? What is this? She leans into the vulnerability. She doesn't withdraw. She doesn't give in to the why do I exist. She rather owns that she's uncertain and goes to ask God. Dr. Brene Brown of the University of Houston speaks regularly on vulnerability and how we can open up and deal with those moments of uncertainty and vulnerability so that we can move forward. So the seat of creativity, the seat of progress, the seat of our strength is in the very place that we think is the seat of our weakness, is in our vulnerability. And uncertainty is one of the places we most feel vulnerable. When we don't know what's happening, we are most likely to give into shame, give into fear, give in to feeling like our vulnerability will take us down in some way. And so I found Rebecca does one of the things that we can do to deal with uncertainty. She asks for help. There are many guideposts that we can do to give into, to deal with uncertainty. We can pause and say, what are our goals? How do I decide between these two things? What are my long-term goals? We can create an objective to figure out how we can move forward. We can lean in to the uncertainty, breathe, and open ourselves to what might come next. Let go of the need to control everything and rather focus only on the small things that we can. We can be open to surprises, which Rebecca seems open to the surprise of two children and figuring out how to be the mother to twins, which can be less common than just being a mother in general. She can be open to surprises. She can accept the risks. And she is curious. She goes and asks. And she's brave. She goes through despite any pain or discomfort. She comes through, says, okay, this is why I exist. These two little boys that will grow into two great nations. This is why I exist, so that I can help move this forward and be the mother, one of the mothers of two people, of these many, many people to come. So as we go through our own lives, each of us with things struggling within us, whether physical boys and twins or just any decisions that we are making, as we go forth with things struggling within us, may we remember that uncertainty need not be a moment to give in to the why do I exist, but it can be a moment to give in to being open, to asking questions, and to being brave. So Shabbat Shalom. We all have our moments of giving in to uncertainty and of moving forward. Say Shabbat Shalom to all who've joined us, to Michael Kahn, to Jim Brahman, to Jody Zucker, to Marty Lip. Shabbat Shalom to Cheryl Toof. Another Torah portion revisit with family. And Shabbat Shalom to Julia Whitehead and everybody who is joining, whether you've commented or not. Shabbat Shalom to everyone, and I will look forward to seeing you again next week. You can join us for our Shabbat morning service in the sanctuary at 10 a.m. or on the live stream at 10 a.m. and I look forward to seeing you soon. Shabbat Shalom.